Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz interview series with Brooklyn jazz pianist Julia Chen. She talked to us about her debut EP, Silver Spoons, coming out here in late 2018, and how she started her life off as a shy, bespectacled child, learning to rely on music to express her personality and connect with others in ways that she couldn't with words. She was raised in Brooklyn by parents from Poland and China and grew up learning piano by ear from her mother, who was both a poet and mathematician. She would go on to get a Bachelor of Music degree in jazz piano performance and a Bachelor of Arts degree in psychology from Oberlin College and Conservatory in Ohio. But she made her way back to New York to form a rendezvous with a trio, and you'll hear that story along with so much more. Please get to know Julia and dig this interview, my friends.
Thank you for reaching out to Neon Jazz, and I'm looking forward to asking you a lot about your life and about your new CD, Silver Spoons. So before we begin, I guess the first question I have for you, your latest CD, Silver Spoons, talk to me about this project and how you feel about it.
Yeah, so it actually kind of crashed upon me. I mean, I didn't really think I was ready to make an album. I was like, I'll wait till I'm grown up and I'll wait till I have money, and making all sorts of excuses. And then my friend Peter, who's the drummer on this album or EP, called me one day and was like, oh, hey, my friend's offering me this really discounted recording session overnight, super last minute this next weekend. Do you want to do it? And in New York, you don't refuse a discounted recording session. So I was like, yes, let's do it. But what music are we doing? And he said, well, I guess we already know a bunch of your tunes because we've been playing them and performing them, and you've been composing all this stuff. So I guess let's record that. And I was like, great. I ended up with an album without, it just kind of landed in my lap. And now that it's out, I kind of realized that I was ready for it the whole time.
Right on. So you were, as your bio said, you were a shy, bespectacled child. Did music give you an outlet to not feel so shy? Talk to me about your childhood and how you got into music.
Well, I started playing music pretty early. I think my mom was trying to teach me piano, her whole family, all played classical piano, so she started trying to teach me pretty early, but, I wasn't practicing, of course, what 5-year-old practices at all. And then I had one teacher who, for some reason, taught me a blues. And I don't really remember this, but I think I must have kind of appeared more into that than anything else that she was teaching me, because then she moved away, and then the next teacher that I had was like, oh, you sound great on this blues. Let's teach you a whole bunch of jazz. So that's kind of how I got into this. Kind of as I grew up, I was always shy. I didn't really want to talk to strangers. I took me a long time to make friends with new people, but music is just one of those things where you start playing with music with people, and that's an instant connection that you don't need words for. That's an automatic expression of your personality and who you are. And so all throughout, even through college, people would hear me play and be like, oh, that's not, I didn't realize you were like that. And I'm like, no, I'm like this the whole time. It just doesn't necessarily come out unless I'm playing.
So what musicians did you listen to growing up, or when you really started fostering this love of jazz that moved you?
I mean, I listened to a whole variety of non-jazz stuff that any preteen listens to, NSYNC, whatever. Within jazz, I started listening to Thelonious Monk. And I just liked that he had a really definitive style, that all his compositions kind of fit into this one style, and he's just always the same person. And all the compositions are super, super catchy and very original. So I listened to him a lot. I listened to a lot of rock, a lot of Yes, Led Zeppelin.
So you must have had a unique perspective on the world. Your parents are from Poland and China. Your mom was a poet and a mathematician. Is that accurate to say?
Yeah.
Cool. How did that help you with the way you grew up and just how you see the world now?
Oh, man. I don't know. I guess I didn't realize it was that unique of a perspective growing up, because in New York, everybody's just from some multicultural, multiracial background. Or not everybody, but it's really common. And I went to a high school where it was 40% of the students were Asian, so I just didn't really think anything of it. And it was only when I went to college that people are just like, oh, whoa, you have this background, whoa. And so, I think it was really helpful in that I did get to visit family in Poland and visit family in China, and not just go to those countries as a tourist, but to go to those countries and eat for 2 weeks with a family who lives there and who's only speaking in the language that you don't understand. And so that's just like a really cool immersive experience that I think gives you kind of a perspective of like, oh, you know, New York or the U.S. isn't how everybody's living. Yeah, I don't know whether that seems through the music, but, you know, I hope something does.
Without a doubt. So you're in Brooklyn, you were raised in Brooklyn, but your folks met at Ohio State, and you went to Oberlin College. What is it about the Ohio connection here?
Yeah, I don't know. My parents always joke about that. I don't really know how I ended up in Ohio because I think they also kind of hated Ohio, so the fact that I returned to it was always like, what are you doing? I was born in Ohio, but I only lived there till I was 3, so it's not like I remember anything. Yeah, but I basically returned to Ohio to go to Oberlin, which I just wanted to go to like a small town college that had both a liberal arts program and a conservatory. So I guess it's a weird coincidence that I ended up back in the same state where I was born, even though I didn't remember it at all.
Yeah,
I hope it was like traumatic for my parents having to visit me.
Well, I think about that Clint Eastwood film about Bird. It's like he was born in Kansas City, made his way to New York, and his resting place is actually here in Kansas City. It's funny how life works. You just kind of come back to your origins sometimes.
Yeah, I guess you end up there. Although I hope my resting place is not in Ohio. That would be good.
Yeah. So you got a bachelor's degree in psychology and piano performance, and you learned from Roberta Pickett, Billy Hart, a lot of big names. You know, being out in the world is a huge way of learning how things work, jazz life. But what did you learn in college? What was very key that you learned in college?
I mean, I think the most important thing for me in college was all the connections that I got. So many of the people that I play with now are actually connections from college. Yeah, I'm really lucky that there's like a huge amount of Oberlin students who moved to New York afterwards. So it still feels like I've kept a lot of those connections going, even though I'm in a different place. Well, I just moved back to where I was from. But yeah, it's so nice having, it feels like we have like a similar, background or like kind of a similar maybe purpose or aesthetic to like what types of things people are looking for in music and like what types of energies, even if everybody has different specific things that they really like. I don't know. For some of college, I was waiting to get out of college, so I don't know. I think I learned why I wanted to leave college also, which sounds kind of insane, but yeah.
No, I understand that feeling. So, it seems like our theme here is kind of this circular motion of a carousel. And you met Dan and Peter in college, and then you guys all hooked up in New York after college.
Right.
What was that like to kind of get back together and pick up the music?
Yeah, it was cool. It was, actually during the period where we didn't play, where some of them weren't, where Peter, I think, wasn't living in New York, I was actually going through like a hand injury where I basically stopped playing for like a year and a half. And then pretty soon after I started playing, I called them and was like, let's have this session. So it was like a kind of a rebirth for me almost, like coming after this really long hiatus from playing at all. And it was just super cool because, over the years we'd all gotten better. So it was like, oh, we still have this connection, but are just better musicians, better technicians. And so a lot of the stuff that like may have been hard to make work before was just like, oh, this is easier, great. And like now we have a purpose. I have composition. I have stuff that I want to do. So it's kind of like the same thing, but so many more avenues and options that you could explore.
You played at the Kennedy Center in D.C. You played around New York. Do you get nervous playing, or is it a home for you to be on stage?
I'd say both. I really enjoy performing. Yeah, it's a weird thing. I think a lot of people who are shy are super into performing just because it's like a different avenue for like showing their personality or connecting with other people. But I also do get nervous every single time. So yeah, I don't know, it's weird. I actually, during childhood, I was on this medication for a heart problem unrelated to anxiety, but I was taking beta blockers for it, which I don't know if you've heard of, but like a lot of performers actually use beta blockers to go on stage to not feel anxiety. And then during college, I went off the beta blockers because I no longer needed them for the heart condition. And all of a sudden, I was super, super nervous every time I went on stage, and my hands would like tremble, and I would like stop being able to feel any sensation in my fingers. And I was like, what is going on? And I realized it was because I had been used to be playing with the beta blockers the whole time. So yeah, I had all this nervous energy that I had never had to learn how to deal with, and so it took a couple years to kind of get used to that. But even now, I still definitely get nervous, yeah.
Cool. So you got an album coming out. You're clearly busy. How do you feel things are going?
I mean, I feel like they're going pretty well. I mean, a couple years ago, I never would have imagined, like, oh, I'd have an album, and I'm recording all this other stuff, and I'd have all these shows. Wouldn't have expected to have made the progress that I made, especially a couple years ago. I was dealing with this injury and not playing at all. So, yeah, I feel great about it. I feel super grateful to, like, everybody who supported me through all of this. And, yeah, just thankful to be playing.
So let's say we talk in about, 5-10 years from now, and I ask you, what's been going on? What are you going to want to tell me?
I hope that I can tell you I've made, 6 more albums. That would be super cool. Or maybe that, I'm doing festivals or tours or playing overseas somewhere. But I don't know, really I just hope that I, can keep composing and keep growing and evolving and composing within, still keeping some of the same sound, but changing based on new things that I learn or new influences that I have. And I hope that I'm still, making a lot of music connections with the people around me.
So what's the last vinyl record you put a needle down on?
I don't own any vinyl records. I think the last time I listened to one was when my mom had a record player in childhood, but then she sold it. So,
yeah. The one thing that's a big learning piece for musicians, I would think, is to see live performances. What's a live jazz show that you saw that really moved you?
Oh, this was many years ago that I saw Daphnis Prieto. It was like a free concert outside in New York on this park called the Oval Lawn, like Madison Square Park or something, different from Madison Square Garden. It was astounding. I just went because I was like, oh, it's a free concert. I've heard of Daphnis Prieto. This should be something. And it totally blew me away. It was, absolutely amazing. He had all these crazy compositions, and they were all super catchy, and he had this, amazing band, and he does some, drum solos on his own where he's just playing by himself for, 5 and 10 minutes, and they're, absolutely captivating. So, that was an experience that I think I'll always remember.
So let's say a jazz DeLorean pulls up in front of your house, and you can punch in the digits and go anywhere and see anybody in jazz. Where are you going?
Oh, my God. I would love, the first thing that pops to mind, and I'm sure I'd change my mind in, right after we get off the phone, and I'd be like, oh, my God, I should have chosen this other thing. But the first thing that pops to mind is I would love to see, an Errol Garner concert.
It's funny you say that because it's a little gray and overcast, just little specks of rain coming down, and that was the first song that I listened to this morning. It was a live recording that was released last year, and it was very fitting. It's called Night Concert. It was released in 2018.
Well, I got to check that out because Concert by the Sea is one of my favorite recordings. So
yeah, it's beautiful. It was and then after that, of course, with just the way the weather's been, you mentioned Bill Evans. Bill Evans is a natural for a day like today. So anyway, Errol got everything going in the right direction. So,
sure.
So let me ask you this: why do you love jazz?
I mean, I like a whole variety of music, but what I really like with jazz is that it has that capacity for self-expression much more so than a lot of other genres. I play a lot of, for example, neo soul R&B gigs, but I've definitely done those gigs where they'll stop me halfway through the song and they'll be like, hey, so you're playing a lot of extra fills and stuff, and we really just want you to play those 4 chords looped the way we wrote them every single time for 5 minutes for the whole show, for every song. And I'm like, great, I love doing that. That's super fun. You end up in this kind of like meditative groove state where you're just like grooving out on those 4 chords. But that's something totally different, like from what I like about jazz, which is that it's kind of like, express your personality. You have, 3-4 choruses, and you can write your own songs. Go. So I just really like that that it really allows you to just be like, I'm feeling like this today, and this is what I'm choosing to say about myself right now, and it's so in the moment, and really allows you to like not just interpret the music, but create the music, and to like build a connection with the people that you're playing with. Like often, like when I'm soloing, I'm kind of thinking like, I really love this drummer and bass player. How can I solo in a way that will almost like show them off, that will show everybody how good they are, and how much the connection I feel with them.
This is my final question. Everyone has a version of you, your family, your friends, your fans, but you know you the best.
Right.
So who do you think you are?
Oh, I ask myself that in the mirror every day. I'm like, who are you? Why are you in my bathroom? No, I'm kidding. I mean, I don't know. I'm just a person trying to create music that expresses how I feel and how I can connect with other people. I don't know. That's a hard question.
Yeah, it's deep, but that's good. It doesn't have to. Sometimes brevity is the best way to answer this question. I can tell you that.
Great.
So, Julia, that's a great note to stop on. Thank you for reaching out again. Thank you for talking about your life and music. Good luck with Silver Spoons. And hopefully at some point we see more of you Brooklyn-based jazz musicians come through Kansas City and give us your goods.
Yeah, that would be awesome. I would love that. Thank you so much for having me. My pleasure.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to yet another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest players in Brooklyn, Kansas City, and spots all over the world, giving fans all that jazz. And thanks to Julia for her time, stories, and her music. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Domino on the iTunes Store. Visit neonjazz at youtube.com. And for everything Neon Jazz, go to the neonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
Neon Jazz.